Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining to learn more about Bright Horizons backup care and how we can help cover gaps in care when your normal arrangements break down or fall through. So the program, just to kind of let you know about Bright Horizons, if you've never heard of us, we originally got our start back in 1986 with brick and mortar physical child care in center-based environments. So a lot of people do know us as a provider of child care. The program that we're going to talk about here today is kind of outside of physical center-based care only. It's one of those things that we designed in order to help support the way that people work, live, and learn. And we are trusted by over 1,100 organizations that do deliver this as a employee benefit, or in your case, a student benefit as well. Even in the partners that we work with under our backup care program, we are looking for high quality and high quality partners. So we do monitor continually every part of our network and any of the care that is delivered under our program. So first of all, I do want to just kind of explain what backup care is and why you might be able to use it. So this is a subsidized care program that is designed to help you with gaps or breakdowns in care. And there's a lot of reasons why these breakdowns do occur that could prevent you from being at school and continuing your own education. But a few of them are things like school breaks or in-service days. Those are really big ones. We also have all the many days of summer, which we are still in. And so oftentimes, if you have a child that's in school, you're well aware, but schools are out about 81 days a year. So you might be left to find an alternate solution. You may also have a regular caregiver who watches your child. They could get on break. They could be on vacation. They could quit, cancel, or something like that. And they all of a sudden have left you with that gap or that breakdown. Well, that's where backup care can come in and be your backup solution. We do provide care for what we call mild illness as well under our network. So this would be in the instance that maybe your child has a low-grade fever or something, and they're not going to be able to go to school the next day or the same day. There's just a couple of ways in which that program works. It is going to be an in-home care solution, and it is going to be mild illness, as we refer to, so progressively getting better in nature, not worse. And so there are some restrictions around, ensuring it's not a COVID-related illness and things like that. Then we also see a lot of times where maybe there's a stay-at-home spouse or partner who normally watches the child, but they have an appointment or something that they have to be at. So again, that break is just kind of a temporary situation. And then we do have situations where you might have an adult or elder loved one who is one of your qualifying family members or dependents through the IRS publication 501, and maybe they need some support as they recover. So you would be able to refer to the IRS publication on what a qualifying family member is and what a dependent is in order to make sure that you're using this program correctly as it relates to caring for those loved ones. So things like after a surgery, a fall, an accident, or a procedure. Now, as far as how we deliver the program, we have a couple of different solutions for children. The first is going to be center-based care. This is where we do use our own Bright Horizons centers that I talked about in the intro, but we also do have a nationwide network of vetted partner centers. They are typically going to provide care for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, and many of them do even have school age options up to the maximum age is generally 12 in a center. Now, under our center-based care umbrella, a couple of things that are important to note. One is that there is some paperwork that is required in order to send your child to a center for the day. And so as part of Bright Horizons and the backup care program, we are actually going to give you those forms in advance and up front. You can fill them out. You can save them to our portal by uploading them into our portal, and then they remain valid for 1 year. So that way, next time, if you have to use a different center, we can share those forms. Now, the second solution for care is going to be in-home care. It's a little bit more flexible in the ages that it serves, but then also in the hours where it operates. We do have a nationwide network, again, of in-home care providers or agencies that we partner with under this umbrella. And the nice thing that you need to realize is that any of the caregivers that come out to provide home care are going to be employed caregivers under that partner agency of ours. So this means they've been background checked, they're vetted, they're insured, indemnified, and trained. Now, again, they can accommodate those various schedules. So maybe you're taking night classes, or you have something, come up that is outside of those traditional center hours. This one is going to be a good solution for kind of that more flexible approach. Also outside of the age of 12, or sometimes families that have multiple children, or maybe kids like mine who just prefer the home-based environment. This is a really good solution. Now, the third way we deliver care for children is going to be specifically in-person camps. Camps do include a variety of different partners, and they do kind of vary based on the geography and the time of the year. It does include Steve and Kate's camps, which operates in some different metropolitan areas. We also see Galileo a lot in our network. And then some of our centers do have camps as well. So these are widely popular during breaks or vacations, like school breaks or spring breaks and things like that. Now, as far as kind of a use case scenario, I wanted to just kind of explore a story. This is Sandra. She and her husband both work full time, and their nanny just gave a 2-week notice, as well as calling out the next day. Sandra is unable to miss work, and her husband is traveling. And so what she does is she goes to Bright Horizons, to the benefit website. She gets some ideas on how she could use Bright Horizons in order to help support her. She picks up the phone and she gives our 24/7, 365 contact center a phone call, and they talk, and she explains her need for the immediate care the next day. And then she also explains that her nanny has given notice. So the care consultant is able to get her registered for the backup care benefit and initiates a reservation request. In return, Sandra is able to get an immediate real-time reservation confirmation at one of our center locations for the next day. And then the caregiver also sets up a reservation and secures a week of care with an in-home caregiver during that transition time, after that nanny is no longer employed. So as a result, Sandra is able to be less stressed. She had a very low copayment on this program, and so she was really appreciative of the fact that the majority of the costs are picked up under this subsidized benefit. And then she was able to be present and productive at work while not missing a beat. So that's a child care example of using the benefit. Next, I wanted to talk just a little bit about that adult and elder care umbrella. So again, this program is really going to be designed for supporting family members that are what we call qualifying under the IRS 501 publication. And so you can find more information about this in the lifework.arizona.edu website. And this is going to talk a little bit more about these parameters. But if you use this program for a family member that needs some support or care, it is also a nationwide network of in-home care providers. Now, typically speaking, they're going to be more adult focused or geriatric focused, and it is companion care. It is not in-home health care, just so you're aware. They can help with light things like recovery care assistance after a surgery, so making sure that they get in and out of the bed safely, in and out of a wheelchair, etc. Light housekeeping related to the day of care, meal preparation, and personal care services like bathing and grooming. So again, for a use case example, I want to talk about Sean real quick. His mother lives 1,600 miles away, and she's 86 years old. She's recently had surgery and she's recovering, and due to work and family commitments, Sean's not able to travel to be there with her as she recovers. So what Sean does is he goes to the Bright Horizons benefit website and he registers for Bright Horizons backup care. He initiates a reservation for in-home care for his mother, and as a result, we find a caregiver to be there with her. Again, he's not as stressed because he found somebody. He didn't have to fly across the country to be there and miss work. He had a very low copayment on that care, and then he was able to be at work and not have to miss his work and family commitments. So now what I want to talk about really briefly is just kind of the important details about the backup care benefit. And I'll spend just a little bit of time on this slide and also giving you just a little bit more tips about backup care. So As I mentioned, this is a subsidized care program, and it's being provided even for students to use in the event that there is a breakdown in care. So it is not a permanent solution. It is what we refer to as a backup plan. You have access to up to 80 hours per student on a fiscal year basis. So that's going to be July to June is the way that use bank is going to reset every July 1st. It would be a new 80 uses that you get, or 80 hours of use. Now, if and when you use the program, there's going to be a small co-payment because the University of Arizona is picking up the majority of the cost here. So the center-based care or camps are going to be the same rate, and it is an hourly rate. It is $3 an hour per child. And then if you used in-home care is an hourly rate of $6 an hour. One caregiver can watch up to 3 care recipients. And there is a 4-hour minimum on care. We do constitute typically like a session is up to 10 hours under the benefit. And we do recommend that you go ahead and try to book care in kind of those longer increments. These do give you more of a chance of us finding a caregiver because typically if it's just a smaller session that you're needing, sometimes caregivers, want to work a full day or a full shift. So even if you need to set aside some time for studying or something like that as you return, still going ahead and keeping that caregiver for a 6 or an 8-hour shift may be more helpful in us finding a caregiver for that day. Now, we do accommodate reservations up to 30 days in advance. So this way, if you had to plan for something in advance, you would have a reservation window that opens up 30 days out. But we do have a system that allows for same day or even next day reservation requests. Personally, I'm going to always say to you to give us as much notice as you have. So even if it's the night before, your child's center has had a flood and they're going to be closed the next day, or something has come up, go ahead and make your request with Bright Horizons, because this way we can get started on that reservation request either the evening before if the centers or the in-home caregiving agencies haven't closed, or immediately when they open the following morning. That will help versus waiting till the last minute to put that request in and then suddenly, we aren't able to find somebody. So just kind of think about it in those terms, give us as much notice as you can. Our care consultants are available 24/7, 365. So you have 3 different ways to request care. One is through our website, one is through our mobile app, and then the other is our phone number that's available 24/7. Now, should you need to cancel a reservation request, that is not a problem, but we do ask that you do so within 2 business days, and that's going to be by 5 p.m. in the time zone of care. And this is so that we can allow time to give that caregiver additional support or, give them additional assignments once you've made that cancellation. So just make sure you remember that it's 2 days. Now, using backup care is going to be a 2-step process. And step 1 is going to begin by completing what is called the University of Arizona Backup Care Enrollment Form. This is done before you register with Bright Horizons. And so we do recommend you go ahead and do this even in advance of a need. That way you are in and ready if and when an emergent need comes up. Now, once you complete that form, you're going to get an email with a link on where you can register for Bright Horizons. And you do have to complete this enrollment form each fiscal year. So you will have to re-enroll with the backup care enrollment every year. Now, as far as where you can find it, the website is linked here. It is lifework.arizona.edu/backup-care-students. So you may want to just copy and paste that or type that in real briefly. And I'll see if we can put that into the chat at the end as well. Now, the second step is going to be to actually access then Bright Horizons using the link that you get. So we have an online website that you're going to get that link to once you've done that University of Arizona enrollment. And then this is where you would sign up for an account. You will click where it says join today as a first-time user, and then you'll fill out some eligibility information. Now, if your request is coming to us before we have received eligibility from University of Arizona, and maybe you're not in the system, it's something that you need right away after that enrollment form has been done, you will need to give us a call at our phone number here, 877-BH-CARES, in order to request a reservation, because we do have a eligibility component, and there is a it might be weekly. I can't remember if we're doing it multiple times a week or not, but it is a file that we get the names of who is eligible for that benefit. And should you need to make a reservation before we have that file, you would just need to give us a call, and the contact center would be able to help you. Now, the third way is going to be our mobile app, and this is a screenshot of what that mobile app looks like. So personally, I recommend that you register first on the website and then use the mobile app. It's a little bit easier user experience. But if you are looking for the mobile app, you can download it just by searching for backup care. And it's super easy to use and keep everything on the go from there. So that is the Bright Horizons backup care program, and kind of why you would use it, how you can use it. I did want to give you just an opportunity if there were any questions or anything you thought of, feel free. And then I'm going to see if I can get that that link and just pop it into the chat real briefly too. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute. All right, no questions. All right, here's the link again for that enrollment form. So that's your step one, is to complete that form, and then after that you would get a email link that says now go register for Bright Horizons. So I do want to thank you for joining and learning just a little bit more, and we can hang out for just a second if we want to see if any other questions pop in your head. Thanks, Carla.
I'm sorry, are you taking questions?
I am, yeah.
Oh, okay. I did want to ask about the last provider we had, Lourdes. We had to have an extra charge because we don't specifically live in Tucson. Is there an extra charge when we outside of Tucson?
No,
Okay.
now the expanded program covers statewide, so you won't have any additional charges this time.
And then I did want to ask like what they're allowed to do, because again, I'm only referring to the last service, Mandy, because it was the last service. It has nothing to do with you, but the last service couldn't like pick up or drop off. I think sometimes they didn't even like to pick up at the bus stop. So I'm trying to figure out what the boundaries are for if we have an in-home person.
Yeah, so there are still some restrictions. So because we do insure and indemnify the program, we do restrict transportation from our caregivers in their own personal vehicle for any care recipient. So for child care, that does cause a little bit of sometimes some logistic issues for you as a parent. What you would be able to do is authorize them to, if it's walkable, to like walk to the school or go to the school to pick up the child. But they can't physically transport them. They're not going to be able to take them to soccer practice or swim lessons or any of those type of things. But if you could also arrange a ride, so even if you have a neighbor or a friend or somebody that picks your child up and can drop them off, that can all be communicated to us in advance. And we just need to know who is going to be the adult that is releasing those children into our care. And I'm assuming this was for a child care example, so that's what I'm going to talk about. We do always have to begin and end every session with a person that is 18 or older. And so that is going to be one of the things there. We just need to make sure that we have an adult meeting and greeting that caregiver and providing that initial greeting and the release whenever it's time to end that day. Now, if it's an adult care situation, similar situation might occur. A lot of times we get asked, like, can you take them to the grocery store or doctor's appointments or something like that? We do physically, again, restrict the transportation, but you could use a taxi, a Lyft, an Uber, public transportation. So you can make alternate arrangements and our caregivers can go. And even with a care recipient, if they can drive, if they're an adult and they can drive, then our caregiver could go and, help get them in and out of the car and safely and into things. But that is one of the restrictions. A couple of other restrictions that I can just think of off the top of my head. One of them is going to be, I'm in Texas. I know you're in Arizona, things like swimming. So think of it as like more risk adverse behaviors, because again, those insurances, we're going to restrict that. If you had swim lessons at your house and you have somebody that's coming in to do that, then that's fine. But our caregiver cannot be considered that lifeguard or that person that's overseeing that kind of risky activity. Medication's another one. So especially if you have like a mild illness situation, your child's homesick from school, depending on the age.
In my mind, Mandy, that was my next question.
Yeah, so you would have to pre-dose and pre-dispense the medications, then leave our caregivers the instructions. And if your child's old enough to be reminded to take it a certain date and a time, we can do that. You just need to put it out because we don't want the caregivers dispensing and dosing the medications. In the event that you needed some sort of medical care, we do have access in our network to those types of cares, but that's going to be at that additional charge. And it's really outside of this backup care program. So that kind of puts you back to your original question there. But yeah, there are some restrictions. Again, we just have to make sure that our caregivers and our care recipients aren't having anything where it would cause a risk or a liability there. I think that's the majority of them that I hear are usually around things like transportation and medication.
Can you talk more about the facility care? Like, where is it? And like, how does that work? Like, are we registering separately through that office as well?
So you still make a reservation through Bright Horizons, and we have centers in our network. Lourdes, I already forgot what center. Somebody mentioned it. I'm in Texas, so like it's hard for me sometimes. We do partner with the Learning Care Group, and they have a lot of different brands. So Children's Courtyard, Child Time, Tutor Time, and La Petite are their main brands that we see across the board. And then I think there were a couple of other ones in the Tucson area that are outside of that.
Yeah, the confusion usually comes because there's not a Bright Horizons as is here in Tucson, but as you mentioned, you have multiple on the network. So when you call, you can arrange that. But yeah, to answer Sabrina's question, yeah, there's some forms that you need to complete ahead of. So that's better to do it the earlier, the better. So if you want to check that option, verify, like you go to request care and it's going to give you the list or the places, and or if you want, just call them and ask which documents you need to complete ahead of time and just have it ready, because it's better to have it there and not using it than having to complete all the paperwork at the last minute. But yes, you will have to complete additional forms if you are using the in-centered option.
And those are the forms that I said can be saved, and they're valid for a year. So like, I know here in Texas, I had 7 forms per child. So it's pretty extensive. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to fill out all the paperwork. And then it does ask for things like immunization records and things like that if they're going to a center. Now, those are not needed for in-home care, just kind of so I can clarify there. And for camps are another thing. So if you happen to find a camp, sometimes the camps are going to have their own form. So while we're accepting the reservation, we're reserving your spot in that center, in the camp, or with the in-home care provider. If that particular provider has something else that they need you to fill out or sign or do, then they would send it to you. And so some other times that I could think that might be an example would be like during summer, if there's going to be like a splash day, or if it's a center that has like a pool or something and they need you to sign some sort of authorization or release, then yeah, you might have something that's going to need to be done by that center or by that camp. But they will let you know that once we've secured your spot there.
Okay, and now that you talked about the camps, Lourdes, does that include the campus camp, or is that specific? Were you guys not partnering
No,
with them?
it's
Okay.
a camp. It's some camps that they have in their network.
Okay.
It's, and again, it's not for the whole summer. It's as a
Right.
backup base. Okay.
Right.
Mhm.
And then I did want to ask, what was the other thing? Oh, like the hours, sorry, the hours, because my husband sometimes works like 2 to 10. So that's what I wanted to just kind of ask. Because the last time, Lourdes, we had to just get permission of like why. Like if I'm at a conference overnight, but he works 2 to 10 and I need somebody for the hours between 2:30 or 3 o'clock and 10 o'clock, would that still need approval? And how do
No,
we do
not
that?
at this moment. You will just contact Bright Horizons and coordinate it with them.
Okay. And then I just want to confirm that it's 80 hours for the whole year. It's not the semester anymore, like how we did 10
No,
sessions.
we originally had 10 usages per fiscal
Right.
year, but we realized that some people use it only 2 hours and then miss the other 8, or that kind
Right.
of a irregular usage. So now it's a flat 8 hours usage, and that will allows you to play with whatever you needed, most hours one day or less. So it's up to you, but it's per fiscal year. So July 1st to June 30th.
Okay. And I've done, I think, all the paperwork. I had to call the Bright Horizons yesterday because it wasn't going through. So I think they're just waiting for like another approval. So that is very, very helpful.
Yeah, we submit our list every night, but
Okay.
on the Bright Horizons side, it takes a little longer to process, and they have to complete other processes. So
Mhm.
just be sure, if you need care immediately, call again and let them know that you are already on the eligible list, so they
Okay.
can manually look for it. If not, just allow a few days before you can complete. There is the phone number.
Yes.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.
So you can just complete the process. Okay.
Okay. That sounds good. I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you very much,
No, thank you, because
Mandy
you have
and
asked all the questions. Now we have a great recording to post.
oh, yay. I think that's it. Oh, I did want to say, is there an age? I know you said toddlers, um, but will there, oh, this is what I want to ask. Is there any way to prepay to have like credit on our account? Because sometimes, Lourdes, we get a refund check at school, and it would be nice to put some money automatically towards it, or is it just like when you use it, you pay for it?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we collect a credit card at the time of your reservation request.
Okay.
And so that is typically how we're going to process that payment. And it does occur after the care has taken place. So, we wait for you to go to the center and have that full day of care, or how many ever hours. And then that's how the $3 an hour copayment
Right.
gets actually charged. So it's not based on just what your reservation says. It's
Okay.
based on what you actually used.
Okay.
And then if it's in-home care, same thing. It's going to be the $6 an hour copayment, and it gets processed once we confirmed how many hours our caregiver was there.
Okay.
Again, there is that 4-hour minimum. And then we would always say that, the longer that you would use a caregiver, that is one of the things that's going to be just a little bit more successful in us finding a caregiver for that particular day.
And do you guys allow people to request people after a while, or how does
Yeah,
that?
if you have a caregiver that you like, you've used them, you want to reuse them, we do keep that in your profile, and you can re-request the same caregiver. You can also, on the flip side of that, add them to what we call an exclusion list. So like if you didn't want to use a certain caregiver, that is also something you can tell us. And, back to kind of how we monitor the quality, we want to make sure that you are having a good session every time. So if there is ever any feedback or anything you want to give us, good, bad, indifferent, about a center, about a care provider, we take it very seriously. We do add and remove to our network, even down to the caregiver level. So anytime you need to provide some feedback, we do give you a survey after you've had a session. And that's one of the ways that you can kind of let us know those types of things. And then that just helps us make our network and our program stronger. So we really
Okay,
appreciate it.
great. And
Yeah.
then I wanted to also ask, are they allowed to do meals? I don't know if I heard that in the presentation. So
Yeah, so usually around meals, it's going to be related to the day of care. Now with a child, you know, you would probably want to tell the caregiver before you have to leave for the day, you know, what are they like? What are they not like? Do they have any food allergies? That's going to be part of your questions when you make a reservation. I mean, what do you have on hand? Because you may not necessarily want them just going and like opening the refrigerator and being like, I'm gonna make this, you know, and then all of a
right.
sudden they use
And
what
I
you're gonna make
preface
for
to,
dinner.
yeah, I preface that if we have like a frozen pizza, they're allowed to do that, like put it in the oven or microwave things. That's okay. 'Cause I
Yeah.
still want to
And
keep
then,
it
you
in their
know,
scope
even
of practice.
whenever I've used it for my children, like I've left out like crafts and activities on the table. I've gone through with the caregiver, like, here's some ideas, here's some things that I think the girls would enjoy. And even throughout the day, they would provide me with photos of like the kids doing the activities. And so there was always really great communication. And I know every caregiver is different, but just kind of think of it in the terms of if you were hiring a sitter and having somebody come in that's not familiar with your kids in your home, you do need to make sure that you kind of set those expectations with them. But yeah, they're going to cook whatever's related to the day. And then they should pick up after them too. So, like loading the dishwasher, washing the dishes, whatever needs to be done to make it like that never happened when you come home, you know. They shouldn't leave you with a messy home or anything like that. That's going to be all part of the day.
Okay, great. And I know we said no pool, which is fine. But they are allowed to still go outside, maybe like watch them do their bikes or things like that. Is it
Absolutely.
okay?
And if you have like a park nearby,
Yeah.
probably not in the summer, but you
Mhm.
know, you could authorize them to walk to the park.
Okay.
And so again, there are some activities that the caregiver can do with them outside of just being cooped up in the home all day.
Great. And then lastly, I wanted to ask, how do they identify themselves when they come to the house? Are they in uniform or what does that look
So
like?
you would have received an introductory phone call as one of our expectations of them. So you should have received that in advance. So they've called, they've given you their name, you've had a chance to talk to them, ask questions, find out about them. And then day of, you know, you would be expecting them at that arrival time. Usually they're not going to be uniformed, I don't believe. You know, I've never had one that was, but they would just, as they come to the door, announce themselves, and you would need to provide them with any information to find the home, and you know, gate codes or anything like that if anything was needed to get in there.
Okay. Alrighty, that's all I have. Thank you again, both of you. That
Yeah,
was really helpful, and I'm excited about the new service. So I don't know if you had played a role in it, Lourdes, but I'm excited for the new service. So thank you. Thank you to you both.
thank you.
Thank you for the nice feedback, Sabrina. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.